Picture this. It's late at night, the kind of night where silence feels heavier than any noise could ever be. You're lying in your bed, staring at the ceiling, your phone resting beside you like a lifeless object, once full of warmth, now empty, void, and cold. A few months ago, that little screen lit up your world. Her name appeared, and it was like oxygen flooding your chest. Her messages made you feel alive. Her voice made everything else fade into insignificance. You believed she was permanent. You believed that your loyalty, your constant attention, your emotional transparency, your willingness to show up and care would make you irreplaceable. You believed that love was a currency earned by effort, that if you gave enough, sacrificed enough, chased enough, she would never leave. And yet, slowly, invisibly, almost without warning, she began to drift. Her replies became shorter, her tone became colder. The warmth you once knew vanished. And the harder you tried to hold on, the further she seemed to move away. You sent more messages, stayed up later waiting for replies, overanalyzed every word, every emoji, every pause. You convinced yourself that if you loved harder, if you tried harder, if you proved yourself more, she would come back to the person you thought she knew. But the painful truth, my friend, is that attraction is not built on loyalty. It is built on uncertainty. It is built on desire. And while you were busy proving your value, you were slowly teaching her that your presence was guaranteed, predictable, safe. And in that safety, her brain no longer feared losing you. Dopamine, the chemical that drives pursuit, that sparks desire, only fires when something is scarce or uncertain. And when you were always there, you were no longer scarce. You were no longer a question. You were an answer she could take for granted. But then, one day, you stopped. You stopped chasing. You stopped waiting. You stopped seeking her validation. And in that moment of emotional withdrawal, of quiet detachment, something incredible happened. She noticed. She watched. She questioned. She felt the absence she had taken for granted, because the human mind reacts with urgency to loss. And that, brother, is when the game changes. That is when desire awakens. That is when she comes back, only when you finally stop caring. Picture this. It's late at night, and the silence in your room feels heavier than usual. The kind of silence that doesn't just surround you, it sits in your chest. Your phone lies next to you, dark and lifeless. No notifications, no messages, no trace of the person who once made that screen feel like the center of your universe. There was a time when her name appearing on your phone could change your entire mood. One message from her could calm your chaos. One call could make you forget the weight of the world. She wasn't just part of your life, she was part of your emotional oxygen. And without realizing it, you built your emotional stability around her presence. You gave her your attention freely. You responded quickly, not because you were weak, but because you cared. You made time for her, even when your own life demanded your focus elsewhere. You chose her repeatedly without hesitation. You believed that loyalty, consistency, and emotional openness would secure her place beside you. Because that's what we're taught, brother. We're taught that love rewards effort. That if you show up fully, if you stay honest, if you stay present, the person you love will recognize your value and stay. But human nature doesn't always follow moral logic. It follows biological logic. And biology can be cruel. Slowly, things began to shift. Not all at once, but in subtle ways that were easy to ignore at first. Her replies became shorter, her enthusiasm faded. The emotional warmth that once felt effortless started to feel forced. You noticed it, but you didn't want to believe it. So you compensated. You gave more. You tried harder. You convinced yourself that maybe she was just busy, maybe she was stressed, maybe she needed space. But deep down, your nervous system already knew the truth. Because the human brain is designed to detect emotional withdrawal before the conscious mind accepts it. And here is where most men make the mistake that costs them everything. When faced with emotional distance, they move closer. When faced with uncertainty, they try to create certainty. When faced with the fear of loss, they fight to prevent it. You started checking your phone more often. You started overanalyzing her tone. You started investing more emotional energy, hoping it would restore what was fading. But instead of bringing her closer, it made her more distant. Not because she was evil, not because she wanted to hurt you, But because attraction operates on psychological mechanisms that exist beneath conscious control, the human brain is hardwired to value what feels scarce. This is not opinion. This is neurological reality. Dopamine, the chemical responsible for desire and motivation, is not released when something is guaranteed. It is released in anticipation, in uncertainty, in the possibility of gain or loss. When you were always there, always available, always emotionally present, her brain stopped registering you as scarce. Your presence became predictable. And predictability, while comforting, reduces emotional urgency. The brain does not fight to keep what it believes will never leave. But then something changed inside you. Not suddenly, but gradually. You became tired. Tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of feeling like your emotional effort was disappearing into a void. And for the first time, you stopped. You stopped chasing conversations. You stopped forcing emotional closeness. You stopped checking her profile to see if she was active. You stopped centering your emotional stability around her attention. You didn't do it to manipulate her. You did it to protect yourself, because your nervous system had reached its limit. And that's when the shift happened. She noticed, not immediately, but gradually. She saw your absence where your presence once lived. She felt the silence where your attention once flowed. And her brain reacted, because uncertainty activates the survival mechanism. When emotional access is removed, the brain perceives potential loss, and loss triggers urgency. She started checking your profile. She started wondering what you were doing, who you were becoming, whether you had emotionally moved on. Not because you begged, not because you convinced her, but because you stopped providing certainty. This is the paradox of human attraction. The more you chase, the less valuable your attention appears. The less you chase, the more valuable your attention becomes. Because value, in psychological terms, is not determined by effort, it is determined by scarcity. The moment you stop making her the center of your emotional world, you became unpredictable again. And unpredictability restores emotional tension. Emotional tension restores attention. Attention restores attraction. But this is where the deeper truth lives, brother. The real transformation was not her reaction. It was yours. Because when you stopped caring, you didn't become empty. You became free. Free from the constant emotional monitoring. Free from the dependency on her validation. Free from the invisible leash that tied your emotional stability to her behavior. You returned to your cell, started investing in your own growth, your own peace, your own identity. And that version of you, the emotionally independent version, is the most powerful version that exists. Because emotional independence signals survival strength. And survival strength is the foundation of attraction. Every human being, consciously or unconsciously, is drawn to individuals who demonstrate the ability to stand alone. Not because independence is cold, but because independence is stable. Stability signals safety, safety signals strength, and strength commands respect in ways that emotional dependency never can. She came back, yes, but not because you proved your love. She came back because you stopped proving it, because you stopped abandoning yourself to maintain her presence, because you stopped negotiating your worth for emotional reassurance. You became centered, grounded, detached from the outcome. And detachment removes fear. When fear disappears, emotional power returns to its natural state. And here is the truth most men spend years trying to understand. Your value was never created by her recognition. It existed independently of her perception. But as long as you needed her to see it, you were emotionally vulnerable. The moment you no longer needed her validation, you became emotionally sovereign. And sovereignty is unshakable. It cannot be given. It cannot be taken. It can only be realized. So if you ever find yourself in that dark room again, staring at a silent phone, remember this moment. Remember that your emotional stability does not come from someone else's presence. It comes from your ability to remain whole in their absence. Because the moment you stop chasing external validation is the moment you become internally complete. And completeness, brother, is the rarest and most attractive state a human being can achieve. Brother, one day you will sit in silence and realize that the moment you thought you lost everything was actually the moment you began to find yourself. You will remember the nights when your chest felt heavy, when your thoughts refused to rest, when your mind kept replaying memories that no longer had a place in your present. You will remember how deeply you cared, how honestly you loved, how willingly you gave parts of yourself without hesitation. And for a long time, you believed that losing her meant losing a part of your identity. You believed her absence created a void inside you that could never be filled. But what you didn't reassurance to feel secure. You understood that your value existed independently of anyone's recognition, and that realization changed everything. Because the truth is, brother, the strongest man is not the one who never loved deeply. The strongest man is the one who loved deeply and survived losing it. The one who walked through emotional fire and emerged with his identity intact. The one who stopped chasing what was running and started building what would stay. When you stopped caring, you didn't lose your heart. You reclaimed it. You took it back from a place where it was no longer respected, no longer nurtured, no longer safe. You stopped negotiating your worth in exchange for temporary emotional comfort. You stopped fighting a battle that required you to destroy yourself just to keep someone else. And that is why, from this moment forward, you must never forget this lesson. Never place your emotional stability in someone else's hands. Never build your identity around someone else's presence. Because people can leave. Circumstances can change. But your relationship with yourself is the only permanent structure you will ever live inside. Protect it, strengthen it, honor it. Because when you are emotionally whole on your own, no one has the power to break you. They can walk away, and you will still stand. They can disappear, and you will still exist fully. They can forget you, and it will not erase who you are. And one day, without even realizing it, you will wake up and notice that the pain is gone. Not because time erased it, but because you outgrew it. Because you became stronger than the version of yourself that once believed he needed someone else to feel complete. You will walk forward with calm in your chest, clarity in your mind, and strength in your soul. And in that moment, you will understand the truth that pain was trying to teach you all along. You were never meant to lose yourself to keep someone else. You were meant to find yourself, even if it required losing them.